it's time to leave lovely Lechlade, and it is lovely Lechlade. We've thoroughly enjoyed our week here.
It's like being on holiday.
It is, isn't it? And of course, as you can see behind us, our friends Jan and Tony on the boat. They're getting ready to leave as well. They're coming with us. So we'll say thank you, Lechlade, and goodbye. And now we're heading our way back down the Thames towards Oxford.
Oh, but first, we've just
got
got
the
to
last
do that
little
last
bit.
half mile, haven't we?
Yeah, there's just half a mile left to do after we come through this next bridge,
Yeah, for the
which is called
navigable.
Halfpenny Bridge. And that will be the end of the navigable bit of the Thames. We're not sure how we'll be able to turn round.
We might be reversing.
So we'll see how we go, folks. Enjoy the cruise today.
Although Lechlade is traditionally the end of the navigable part of the River Thames, there is still a half-mile section after Halfpenny Bridge, but it's shallow and winding is tight. We can only take Amy Jo so far down, and then we'll have to retrace our steps, but we had to do it before we left to return back down the Thames.
Very reedy. The reed. Right, if you do not turn beyond this point. Yeah.
And this is it. This is as far as we can go. The sign says that we shouldn't turn beyond this bridge, and it is also too shallow for large boats like Amy Jo. Had we had a dinghy, we could have gone another mile at least before we ran out of water.
That's it, folks. That is as far as we can go. The head of the Thames. And that's it, folks. We have done the whole length of the Thames. I have actually cruised in various boats from the Thames estuary out at Harwich, all the way down through Southend-on-Sea, past Canvey Island, up through Tilbury Docks to Limehouse Basin, and now in Amy Jo I've done from Limehouse Basin to Lechlade, and the head of the navigable part of the Thames. So feeling quite emotional and proud, let's put it that way.
Having retraced our steps from Lechlade down to Oxford, we then turned on to the Duke's Cut, which is a link between the River Thames and the Oxford Canal. Once we reached the Oxford Canal, we turned right and continued down the Oxford Canal to its source at Isis Lock. We went down through Isis Lock and returned back up the Thames to the start of Duke's Lock, where we then retraced our steps along Duke's Cut once more, but this time turning left onto the Oxford Canal when we reached the junction. Turning left onto the Oxford, we continued our journey along the Oxford Canal until we reached the village of Thrupp.
Well, that's it. We've come off the main stretch of the river now, and this is what they call Duke's Cut, and it is very narrow, and I've had to slow right down to get round this bend, and I think we're now on canal speeds rather than river speeds.
Although we're still on the river, aren't we?
Although we're still on the river, it's so narrow that we need to go fairly slowly. And there we are. Duke's Cut, folks.
The Duke's Cut was constructed at the request of the 4th Duke of Marlborough. The Duchy of Marlborough owned Wolvercott paper mill since 1720, and much of the surrounding land belonged to their Blenheim Palace estate. In the 1790s, the Duke saw the benefit of bringing Warwickshire coal to the area, as the Upper Thames area only received fuel from Northumberland coalfield via London, and consequently very little was left by the time the vessels reached the upper river. As the owner of the land between Oxford Canal and the Mill Stream, the bit we first entered, the Duke was aware of how level it was and permitted a 500-yard, 460-metre cut between the two waterways. The Mill Stream provided the connection to the Thames above Kingswear, and the new cut provided a connection to the Oxford Canal.
So we've made it down a very narrow, as you saw, Duke's Cut into Duke's Cut Lock, and this is the winding gear for Duke's Cut to raise the paddles to set the lock. But we're on to Canal in future. Now when we come out of here, Tony and Jan are going to turn left, we're going to turn right. So after this lock, we're now back on the canal. It's only a stop lock, so we only drop, it says 2'6". There's only one paddle working, and that's the side that Chris is standing on. and it's leaking badly behind us, so it could be a bit slow. Well, that's it. We're now on the Oxford Canal. We've just made the turn at the junction there behind us, and the boat that's just gone past is a Kate hire boat, but the lady who's steering has said that she watches our vlog, so thank you very much for that. We appreciate that, and I'm glad you're enjoying the weather and your holiday. After being on the river and the wide expanses of the river, coming through this, it really didn't look wide enough when I approached it, hence why I'm going so slow. But they're obviously rebuilding the bridge, as you can see, but it just looks tight. Well, I've got to say, the canal is narrow compared to the Thames. But we're just waiting for a boat to come out of the lock. This is Wolvercott Lock, and then we'll go in. This Frenchy Road Bridge. It looks like a lot of the bridges have artwork under them. I'm sure we've seen a complex like this, almost identical, on the Grand Union. I can't remember where, but it's almost an identical complex. Do you remember in the vlog where the statue of the running man?
Yeah.
Well, that's what these places are identical to, the ones where that was. This is it for us. This is the end of the Oxford Canal. There's a short arm just to the left of the bridge, probably about a quarter of a mile, down to a wharf that we could go down, but we can't turn around, hence we're not going down there. But this is Isis Lock, and it takes us back onto the River Thames. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a right and retrace our steps back up the Thames to Duke's Cut again. So as you can see by the bow camera, the turn out of here is extremely tight. In fact, by the time Amy Jo comes out the lock, it'll be too late to turn. So we're going to have to do a little bit of bow swapping with a rope on the bow tied to the jetty. We're going to have to pivot the boat round so she's facing back at the lock, and then push the bow out. All will become clear when we get out through the lock.
As it happened, we found out that the manoeuvre I just described was for boats coming up the lock off the Thames via the Sheepwash channel. We're going down the lock, and we didn't actually need to perform that manoeuvre. We made it in one turn.
We managed to make the turn in one. So now we're on what's called the Sheepwash channel. Presumably because in the old days they used to wash the sheep in it. It's only a little cut, and then we're out on the main stretch of the river again. And the remains of Beecham's cut back. This was a swing railway bridge. So we find ourselves back at Duke's lock again, having done full circle. And this time though we're going to turn left once we're out the lock and go up the Oxford, not down the Oxford.
Just let the lock down.
Just come through Duke's Cut Lock. We've made a left turn and immediately we are now facing Duke's Lock, not to be confused with the other one called Duke's Cut Lock. But unfortunately it was against us, so we're now sitting waiting while Chris resets it. That's where the junction where we've just come from, and it's lovely there, it really is. It's a bit tight going through the cut as you saw last time and this time, but that way down towards Oxford. Well, we're just, when we get on a water point, we always flush the hose out. But I might get blocked from YouTube for this, but there you go. For the non-boaters among you, you may be wondering how we get our water. Well, this is how we get our water. In various places along the canals and waterways, the authorities, i.e. Canal and River Trust or Environmental Agency, provide taps along the way. This is one such tap that anybody can use. So we literally just hook a hose, and by the way, for those of you saying but there's a hose pipe ban, filling a boat with water is exempt from the hose pipe ban purely because you need water to survive, and they make an exception for boaters with the hose pipe because it's the only way we can fill up with water. So basically we have a long hose, this one's about 100 metres, it's one of them expandy hoses, and it just literally goes into a hole, and just below the well deck floor here where the table is and all the rubbish is a plastic tank that takes up the whole area of the well deck, as it's called, under the floor, and it holds about 450 litres, about 100 gallon I think it is, which on narrowboat terms is quite small, but for us we wanted a lower well deck floor, so there you go. So we just keep going, and the side of the hole there you can just make out a hole. That's the vent, that's where the water will come out to tell us it's full, and that's it. That's how we fill with water. Lovely little group of cottages there, nice sandstone, reminiscent of the Cotswolds I guess. Well, I don't think we're that far away actually. This is Kidlington Green Lock. So Roundham Lock is the last lock before Thrupp. So we're making good time, and we've just found out that Tony and Jan have booked a meal in the boathouse, or the boat, in Thrupp, and could we make it? Well, this is the last lock before we get to Thrupp, so now it's a race against time. Will we make it in time? We'll see. On this boat, name is Jeff, and he watches our vlog. This is Roundham Lock, and this is the last one before we reach Thrupp. So hopefully, it's now 12:30, so I very much doubt we're going to make the pub with Tony and Jan. So it's looking more like it's going to be tea and scones in Annie's tea shop, I reckon. So now we're at Thrupp, or coming into Thrupp, and we're on the search for a mooring. Now unfortunately, being lunchtime, it's full of hire boats at the moment, and we might not be so lucky. We shall see.